Om. Sahana vavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we acquire the capacity to study and understand the scriptures. May our study be brilliant and may we not cavil at each other. Om, peace, peace, peace unto us all. Dear brothers and sisters, loving Sai Ram to all of you. We welcome all of you for the online satsang of the Sri Sathya Sai Baba Center of Arcadia. So we are continuing our study circle on Sutra Vahini, which is the beautiful commentary and the explanation was given by our Lord Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba on Brahma Sutras. So there is a repetition, we'll be repeating, recapitulating, because whole of the scriptures, whenever you do, two things are said. One is Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. That means you listen and then you recapitulate. What did you talk about? Otherwise it will go through. This is very, sometimes could be very abstract and esoteric. So we need to have a connection, you need to recapitulate what we talked about so that there is connection. So you have listened and then mananam, you need to contemplate, then also we'll get insights into what we read. There is another beautiful thing about scripture. Same thing, what you read 1 year ago versus now versus next makes big difference depending upon where we are in this spiritual journey. So, and then Nididhyasana, the more you practice also you get more insights. Then Nididhyasana is practice. So this is what the important. And second thing is, it says called Punarukti. Repetition is very common in scriptures. You take any scriptures, whether Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and Brahma Sutras, they will be repeating. Like as I gave the example of the Chandogya Upanishad from Samaveda, Tattvamasi is repeated to that thing 9 times, Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi, that the word. So, because for us to get that idea that we are the Brahman, it needs constant repetition. That is what the purpose is. Japa Swami says, go on repeating, I am God, I am no different from God. So, because this constant repetition is very important. So, to recapitulate, so we are talking about Brahma Sutras, which is part of the 3 important scriptural guides for a spiritual seeker. What are these? Number 1, Bhagavad Gita, which Lord Krishna gave in the battlefield to Arjuna to show for all of us it applicable. We are all in the, it may look, he gave in the battlefield. You may think, well, you talk about philosophy in the battlefield, you'll think of having it in a nice forest or in a cave or near the ocean or a river. But it's in the battlefield you talk about the highest philosophy. Because it is very relevant, we are all in the battlefield. Everyone in the life, you are in the battlefield, whether at home, work, in the society. That means what is battlefield? The negative and positive forces in always confrontation. In that time, how do you tackle that? That is where there is Bhagavad Gita is given. Whereas Upanishads is where it is between a guru and the disciple, where most of them in a forest, in a seclusion, in ashrams, where it is highest Advaita, most of it is the non-dualistic philosophy. Because first you need to be trained through the path of karma and bhakti, that is selfless service and devotion, to be ready for the highest knowledge. And then Brahma Sutras, the ultimate. Brahma Sutras, the very name says these aphorisms talk about the highest knowledge, Brahma Vidya. Because that the ultimate, there is nothing more. Brahma Vidya or Atma Vidya or Adhyatmika Vidya is the same. That's why Lord Krishna says, Vidyanam Adhyatma Vidya. I am of all the knowledges, I am the spiritual knowledge. Because there are two knowledges, Paravidya, Aparavidya. One is the lower knowledge, which is secular knowledge, it's not lower. That is like you talk about physics, chemistry, nuclear physics, or any of these, all the materialistic sciences, they're all called Aparavidya. Paravidya is the knowledge, all the scriptures, Brahma Sutras, Upanishads, Gita, which talk about the highest knowledge, Brahman. That is, Brahma Vidya is Paravidya. That is the one which releases from the cycle of birth and death. So we are talking about Brahma Sutras, and Swami, because it is very tough for scripture, but Swami made it so nice so that we all can understand and make it applicable to our daily life. That is the final thing is, how does it help me to apply to my daily life so that I can ultimately attain the knowledge of Brahman. So in this, these are aphorisms called sutras, Brahma Sutra. Sutra is aphorism. So in a very small few words, the greatest knowledge is hidden in that. That is why for each sutra, Swami gave so much explanation. First one was, at least we should know the essential. Athato Brahma Jijnasa. So after this only you will get knowledge of Brahman. What is after which? That means you need to get the credentials. So at least let us recapitulate and remember the four important credentials. Viveka, which is fundamental discrimination between the real and unreal. Vairagya, which is renunciation or detachment, dispassion. Dispassion towards the unreal and attachment to the real. That means dispassion to the illusory world and attachment to Brahman, the God, Supreme. So that is the second one. First is Viveka, real and unreal discrimination. Second is Vairagya, giving up the unreal and attached to the real. Third is Shat Sampadi, 6 virtues, which all of the spiritual seekers should have. So right now we see so many places, so many conflicts people have because you don't have these basic 6 qualities, however much service you do, bhajans you sing. If you don't have this basic credentials, you are not fit for the knowledge of the Lord, the Brahma Vidya. What are those? First is Shama, control of the mind. Dhamma, the control of the body and senses. Uparati, withdrawal from this distracting world. Titiksha, very important qualities because we get challenges. There's Sahana, also called Titiksha, which is forbearance, fortitude. That is why Shirdi Baba used to say Saburi, very emphasize. Even our Swami, you should refer to the discourse he gave in 2000 or just on forbearance. We have it in our website. We have posted that. And then you should have the Shraddha, faith in God, faith in the scriptures, and faith in ourselves, Atma Vishwasa, faith that you are the supreme Atma. And then finally Samadhana, that means equanimity in all situations when you practice Samadhana, just having that equal mindedness. So these qualities we should have. That is the third qualification. Fourth important is Mumukshatva, that is yearning for God, longing for God, hunger for the spiritual quest. I want to have this knowledge of Brahman in this very lifetime, not postpone. But one thing good about the Vedanta is everybody will be realized one time. It puts me with 10 lives, 100 lives, because how many lives we spent with Bahuveme Janmagatitani. Lord Krishna says, many lives you have spent. After many lifetimes you got tired, because like we see some people now, the Swami says, Khana, Piyana, Marna, Swana. That means they are interested in eating, drinking, being merry, happy, and then die, and repeat the cycle. So he says, they won't have interest in knowing the truth. So we also, after many lifetimes, we did the same thing. After a while, we got tired. My God, this is all life it is. Then by grace of God, you get this yearning, this hunger. What is there more than just this mundane existence? Then you think, oh, this is the purpose of life. So it is by the grace of God we come. And then you come in contact with a saint or an avatar, we are lucky, who shows the way, because you may know but you want to tread the path, and Swami has shown the path. So we need to intensify our journey, the spiritual practices. So this is the first. So remember, go into the details, recollect. This is the first Brahma Sutra, Athato Brahma Jijnasa. Second thing we talked about last few weeks is Janmadasya Athaha. That means this creation, this world, what we see every day, we encounter morning to evening, wake up and till you go to bed, and even in dream you have your own world. So we all have to go through this existence. What is that? How did it come from? So there are so many theories people have given: Sankhya philosophy, this philosophy, scientific Kanada, atomic philosophy. But Swami says, and scriptures say, the ultimate truth is everything came from Brahman. You call Brahman or God or Atman, the ultimate reality, which is attributeless, formless, nameless reality, which is beyond time and space. That is the thing from which everything comes, and in that it exists, and in that it dissolves. You can take the example of a ocean. The waves come from the ocean, go up, exist, and then again get back into the ocean. So we are all in this Satchidananda Sagara, this ocean of Satchit Ananda, knowledge, existence, and bliss. We came from it, go up and do that. So that is first, to make sure we understand that everything came from Brahman. Second thing, what is this creation all about? The scriptures say there's only 5 things in creation: Asti, Bhati, Priyam, Nama and Rupa, are also called Satchit Ananda and Nama Rupa. There are only 5 things: knowledge, existence, bliss, name and form. Of them, 2 are changing, Nama and Rupa. We talked, Swami, in that last aphorism, that always changes. We all know names are not permanent. Our form in this lifetime itself, how we were 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you say the photographs, your own, I have seen with Swami. I went to the hospital in 1991 inauguration. I was following with Swami, and some of the people say they didn't even know it is me, because that time I had a mustache, full of hair and anger. So, because it's the same person, but after a while, because of the changes in the body, you can't recognize even own family and friends, because Rupa always changes, names change. But the thing which doesn't change is this Satchit Ananda, knowledge, existence and bliss, whether you call Satchidananda or Asti Bhati Priyam. So our focus should be, that is the unreal, that is the thing, to go to the attachment to the real. That is the whole spiritual practice. In this process, what comes in the way is Maya, this delusion. And we also talked about how do you encounter Maya? How do you cross Maya? Because Lord himself has shown the way. First is just the path of jnana, self-inquiry. Who am I? Just go on, I'm not this body, I'm not this intellect, I'm not this mind. Then analysis. But easier for most of us with body consciousness, Sharanagati. Lord, that is why he says, Mameva ye prapadyante. Lord Krishna says, Maya me tam tarantite. You surrender to me. You give up everything because it belongs to him only. Once you realize, then you don't need to worry about. Once you surrendered, then you are not caught with the Maya. That is why they give the beautiful example. The fisherman is throwing the net. So this is all Maya. All these fish are caught in the net. But there are some smart fish which are under the feet of the fisherman. So they are not caught because that net goes outside. Similarly, you are under the feet. You hold on to the feet of the Lord. You are with him. Then Maya won't do that. So that is the easiest path. Lord, I hold on to you, I surrender to you, and Maya won't happen. So that is another, that is why they talked about Brahman, 2 things. Tatastha Lakshana, Swarupa Lakshana. Tatastha means indicates, oh, that is Brahman. This is not this. So that is not, that just indicates, like you go this way, you go to reach that particular town. But Swarupa Lakshana is really having the experience. We all need to have that experience. So that is for that this sadhana, that incense spiritual practices is needed. Because everything came from Brahman. That is what they say. Actually, beautifully, Taittiriya Upanishad says that. So from Brahman came Akasha. Akasha, Vayu. From sky, that space, came air. Vayor, Agnihi. From Vayu, air came fire. And Agneir, Apaha. From fire came the water. And Apo, Prudhivi. From water came this earth. And Prithvi Aushadaha. From earth, what came? All this vegetation. That is what for animals, we all need these plants and from vegetables. Aushadaya. Aushadaya Annaha. From that, those plants and trees, you get the food. And Anna Purusha. So from eating that, only our all lives are. You don't eat for a day, you will feel how you feel weak. Few days, few months, you can. You saw that one of the Upanishads we were talking about, Venkat. You remember that? That guy says, go and don't eat. So his memory goes away, he forgets everything. So shows this, from mind is made up of this Anna. So, and mind is bundle of thoughts. So it derives nutrition. That is why Swami is very much emphasis on the food, the sattvic food, the food which is offered to God, because that is the thing. So Annat Purusha. So there is a connection between Brahman and Purusha. We are all interconnected. It came from Brahman came the space, sky. Sky came the air. From the air came the fire. From fire came the water. From the water, the earth. From the earth, the trees and vegetables and all that. And the food, and then the human life, all animal life is sustained. So you need to know that. So then you say, hey, everything is nothing but Brahman. Even the name and root, everything is Brahman. So to live in that Brahman consciousness is important. That is what the second sutra we talked about. Now today we'll be starting the third sutra, which is, so we'll be in the PDF, if you have, which you received, it is page 23. In the books, in the hard copy, it is page 29. We are going to start on page 29. The name of the sutra is called Shastra Yonitvat. That means that all the scriptures, real Shastras means scriptures which give the knowledge of God, or even otherwise, they are all in Brahman. He is the source for that. He is the source for the creation. We talked about the 5 elements and creation, people, everything, but he is also the source of all the scriptures. So that is what we are going to start the third aphorism, third sutra, which is Shastra Yonitvat. Okay, so we'll start, Anupam.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Sai Ram, brothers and sisters. We are starting on the third chapter. Brahman is the source of all knowledge. Shastra Yonitvat. If there are any questions, please put it in the question and answer, and we'll try to address it during the talk today. The scriptures are expressions of the truth acquired by sages while delving into the reality. The words emanated from the inhalations and exhalations of the divine breath. They were heard from no embodied entity. They did not arise out of anyone's imagination. Hence, they are described as impersonal, aparushya, eternal, shasvata. From whom did they originate? From Brahman alone. Veda means knowledge. It always is. It has no beginning, no end. It is referred to as, quote, without end, ananta, unquote. For it is sound, sacred, sustaining, salutary sound. It is experienceable only. It cannot be limited or communicated. So it is a marvel, an unprecedented phase of personal experience for each one. Since Brahman is the source of all such knowledge, it is extolled as all-knowing, almighty, and all-pervading. So in this introductory section, Swami gives us an overview of the source of all knowledge, and he describes the various things as we understand it in our mind, that it is aparushya, shashvata, ancient, ananta, infinite, without end. But it all comes down to Om, one word, and that can be experienced, Brahman. And this is why if we think back in the Siddhisai Satcharit, Shirdi Baba explains at one point that the knowledge of Brahman cannot be communicated, it has to be experienced, and any teacher, preceptor, guru can only tell you what is not Brahman. And Swami makes it so easy here for us to understand this is the nature of Brahman as we start this particular chapter. Sairam.
Sairam. So here they are talking about these scriptures, so they are revelations from God. It's not that here a lot of the work we do in the laboratories, it's research we do into the things through materialistic sciences with the various instruments and things. But these are revelations, they are intuitive knowledge, that is with the highest knowledge. Even in science, when you find Newton, the law of gravity, just like that, found this, it was there before, but by intuition he knew that. Same thing, Archimedes principle. How did he suddenly, what does it say? Eureka. Like that, because these are the greatest discoveries or greatest things are revelations from God. Even Isaac Newton, who discovered, he says, I'm like a little boy collecting the pebbles on the seashore. He says, if I'm not there, God would have used another instrument to reveal these truths. They know this is just revelations. More so, that is in materialistic sciences itself, you say that like greatest things are revelations from God. Here, all these Vedas, Shrutis, Smrutis, Shastras, they're all, that's why Swami says that the breath of God, that means God is breathing into these great rishis. That is why they call apaurusheyas. That means the origin is not in Purusha, in people, apaurusheyas, that's something beyond. So that is why they are called Shrutis. In those days, there is nothing like writing, no printing press, nothing was there. So this has to be transmitted by word of mouth, by telling and the person listening. And you can see for thousands of years, it has happened from generation to generation. That is why it is called Shruti. Shruti means listening. And with, Veda means knowledge. This with, Veda came from the root word with means knowledge. So the knowledge of the highest, even the other thing is referred to knowledge, even the aparavidya, but the highest knowledge. Because in Vedas also we have got materialistic sciences, particularly Atharvana Veda. So this knowledge is, how is it transmitted? Through Shruti, by hearing from one to one. And here Swami says this knowledge is ananta, in infinite, there is no confining, this much is the knowledge. There's a beautiful incident which happened, Swami also related about sage Bharadwaja, because Swami, when we say Bharadwaja Gotra, Swami belongs to lineage of Bharadwaja. That is why even that story where he took that paralysis because of the boon he gave to Bharadwaja. So this Bharadwaja is such a great saint. So we are all given lifespan of 100 years. So at the end is coming. So he's dedicated his life for the study of Vedas and all that. So then this at the end, reaching, then the Lord comes, Brahma comes, hey, you're finishing it, but you did a good job. You had studied Vedas. What do you want? So give me another 100 years, because I didn't still finish studying Vedas. I want to continue the study. Okay, granted. And his term is over, another 100 years, like people extending their position in politics, chief minister 10 years, another 10, prime minister 20 years. He wanted another 100 years. Okay, given. He comes back, what do you want? Oh, I didn't finish it, give me another 100 years. So he gives another 100 years. So 300 years already. So 300 years, he says, what did he say? Oh, I didn't. Then Brahma shows 3 mountains. One is Rigveda, another is Yajurveda, and third mountain is Samveda. Do you know in 300 years how much knowledge you have? Little fistful of sand from each mountain, that's all. So impossible for you to finish all the Vedas because they are Ananta. So, but just you try to know the essence. That is why these Vedas are so important. Swami named, do you know what is the name of the house in Kodaikanal, Swami's house? It is called Sai Shruti. Shruti, he gives importance. And his house in Vrindavan, it is called Trayi Vrindavan. Trayi means three, because originally Vedas were three: Rig Veda, Yajurveda, and Samaveda. Atharvana Veda came on later on. And what is Swami's house in Puttaparthi in Prashanthi Nilayam called? Yajurvedam, Yajur Mandir. So he giving the importance to Yajurveda. So these Vedas are given lot of importance. But the essence of all the Vedas is only three: Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. That is where we talked last time. Brahman is on a tripod. A tripod is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. This is Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. What is Swami's biography called? Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. That is when Kasturi wrote, because the essence of the divinity is Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, truth, goodness, and beauty. Even that is what I think Plato said that. So the essence of the goodness is truth, goodness, and beauty. Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram. That is why the names of Swami's houses in Mumbai, it is called Satyadeep, Sathya. And in Hyderabad, it is called Shivam. In Chennai, it is called Sundaram. So this is the Vedas, and the essence is that. So these Vedas are Ananta. So that is why you cannot have complete understanding. But at least here, Swami made it crystal clear, gave us the summary, main points of Vedas, which are practical for us. So this is important. And here, this is, what is this Brahman? Is the source? Three things. It is all-knowing, almighty, and all-pervading. That means it is omniscient. So Swami, we have seen his experience. He is Brahman. So he knows everything. And is omnipresent, all-pervading. And is powerful, omnipotent. So these three aspects of Brahman you should remember. So these are the important point. This Shruti, it came word of mouth, it came as a breath of God, and it is Ananta, it is infinite we can, but essence we can have, and it is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. So these are the main important points in this discussion. Okay, next one.
So we have a question, Dr. Reddy. Should we address it now or?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Let me bring up the question. Were the Vedas taught in the epic Mahabharata?
Yeah, actually Lord Krishna talks about the Vedas in Gita. Actually, if you read Bhagavad Gita, in Vibhuti Yoga, that is chapter, he says, Vedanam Samavedosmi. Because of all the Vedas, I said we have Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvana. Vedanam Samavedosmi. Of the Vedas, I am Samaveda, he says. So it is that. So, and he emphasizes this knowledge of Vedas are the one which teach us about Karma Kanda, how to do, then Upasana Kanda, how to worship God, and Jnana Kanda, which is the Upanishad, that is the end part of Vedas. And actually the Veda Vyasa says beautifully the Dhyana Shloka, Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsa Sudhir Bhokta Dugdam Gita Amrutam Mayat. The Lord Krishna, what the Gita itself he gave, this essence of Sarvopanishado Gavo, all these Upanishads are compared to a cow. And the Dogdha Gopalananda, the cowherd boy, the Krishna, is the one who is milking the cow. And what is the Dugdam Gita Amrutam? What is the milk that is coming out of this cow? Is the Gita, Gita Amrutam, nectar in Gita. So the cows are the Upanishads, the one who is milking the cow, which is Lord Krishna, and the one coming a milk is the thing. And who is Sudhir Bhokta? Who is the one who enjoys that milk? All of us. So, but Sudhir Bhokta, if you have the real interest, genuine interest in God, then you will enjoy that beautiful Gita. So he talks about this. Actually, Gita is essence of the Vedas. And he says himself, Lord Krishna says, I am Samaveda among the Vedas. And there also he says, but ultimately he says, Vedas are good, but he wants, people get caught up. Vedas up to a point are good. Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunyam Bhava Arjuna. He says, these Vedas are in the realm of three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. That means do these rituals, you will get children, like even Rama was born, or do this, you will be healthy, do this, you will be prosperous. Various shlokas, Shri Suktam, Purush Suktam, Rudram, they are good, but they are used mostly for the material prosperity and happiness. But real, ultimately to be liberated, we are talking about even doing all this, you become a demigod, you may become a Indra, you may become Brahma. But even that is temporary. That is why they say when you have punyam, you have a lot of good merit, you will become God. You will become a semi-demigod, angel, devata. So, chine punye matya loka vishanti. Even Lord Krishna says, once you have punyam, your thing is God, again you have to come back. Because only through human birth, you will be liberated. That is why Lord Krishna says, yes, but Vedas are good, but Traigunye Vishya Veda, they are in the realm of three gunas. Nistraigunyam Bhava Arjuna, but you go beyond these three gunas. That is the goal. So that is what Lord Krishna talks about the Vedas. And also he talks many things about also Gayatri. Gayatri Chandaso Mata. Gayatri is the mother of Vedas. Among Chandasas, I am Gayatri, Lord Krishna says. Like many things he says, I am among the Rishis, I am the Bhrigu, I am a Devarshis, I am Narada. Like that he identifies among the mountains, I am the Himalayas. To identify all the significant things. And Pandavanam Dhananjaya, among Pandavas, I am the Arjuna. Like that he identifies. And here, this is the significance Lord Krishna. And actually what Lord Krishna taught is the essence of all the Upanishads. Gita is a summary of the cream, quintessence of all the Upanishads. So you can continue now.
The Vedas originating in Brahman reveal it. Brahman is the source of the scriptures and is therefore all-knowing. This aphorism conveys the meaning that the Vedic scriptures have to be resorted to in order to know Brahman, that only they can reveal Brahman, and that all Vedas lead people to the same knowledge. Also, the scriptures derive their validity through Brahman and their value from Brahman, for Brahman is the very source of the illumination they contain and confer. Only the omniscient one can be the source of the Vedas. Only the scriptures can liberate people through that illumination named knowledge. They regulate one's life and foster it, guarding it from grief. The Vedas offer comforting counsel. They deal with people affectionately and lead them forward, but they are received through venerable personages who attain the highest knowledge, Brahman. Brahman can't be comprehended by means of proofs or arguments. It is beyond reason and calculation, unmeasurable, aprameya, indefinable. It can be pronounced as being such or so, for this reason or that. It is immeasurable by time and space. The scriptures are the proof. The usual proof for truth are direct perception, pratyaksha, and inferential perception, anumana. But Brahman cannot be cognized by these two means. The sages experienced it and expressed it in the scriptures. The word or sabda is the firmest proof. So the next aspect that Swami is teaching us here is that why do we need to study the Vedas or the Bhagavad Gita or the scriptures? Because they can only reveal the knowledge of Brahman. As we said before, the knowledge of Brahman cannot be communicated to a person, but we can have guidance. By listening to Swami, by listening to his discourses, by listening to the sages, we can infer or we can try to understand the nature of Brahman. And these Vedas have no source, no single source, because they all come from Brahman. But there are some side benefits here, Swami is pointing out, that not only does it help us towards the ultimate goal, the reason we are born time and time again is to realize that we are Brahman, and that's where we merge into Swami at the end, through many, many births. But even while we are going through the births, the Vedas can regulate our life, can guard it, give us happiness, because everybody wants that. And the one important thing I think is that Swami is saying that they deal with people affectionately and lead them forward. This is not a question of punishment or some of the other things that the Semitic religions teach us, because the Vedas are very forgiving, they're very loving, and they're very accommodating of people. And the other thing is that a lot of people argue about Brahman, argue about God, argue about religion. Swami is pointing out here that Brahman is it's beyond the senses. It is infinite, beyond time, space, causation, and it is cannot be measured or cannot be understood through arguments, through proof, etc. And even the two types of proofs that people usually are familiar with, direct and indirect, both of them fail for Brahman because it is beyond all that. It is the source. The only thing Swami is saying is that the Sabda Brahman, that is the word Om, that can confer some knowledge of Brahman.
Yeah, that is essentially the important things. God is, as in Taittiriya Upanishad, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. God is something which cannot be comprehended by the mind. So because everything in life we comprehend by mind and you express in speech. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. By mind or speech. Mind you want to comprehend, you cannot. Speech you want to express about it, you can't. That is why in Samaveda there is that they say that means when you are in bliss, your words fail. You just make that noise, and when finally there is even the Om, Shabda Brahman. That is why Om Ityekaksharam Brahma. But even that will stop when you are completely in bliss, complete serene silence, in the depth of silence. That is why Sri Ramakrishna gave a beautiful example, like the honey bee. When it is hovering out on the flower to get the honey, it will make all the noise. But once it is sucking the honey and it is full, complete silence. You don't hear any more sound. Similarly, the one who is in search, once he is in the bliss, is complete silence. That is called Dakshinamurti method. Swami used to be very favorite of that. In one of the schools in front, you will see that nice statue of Dakshinamurti. Dakshinamurti is one aspect, the Guru aspect of Lord Shiva, where beautifully it is depicted in a pictorial form, where he is sitting, the Guru, underneath a banyan tree. He's a young man, young Guru, and the disciples are all old people. The sage is sitting there, and he is teaching them. He is teaching them by Chin Mudra. Is one of Dakshinamurti says, this is Chin Mudra. For people who don't know, that means this is the Jiva, this is Brahman. So you need to be told that this is Chin Mudra. He teaches it. What is not Maunam Vyakhyanam. How is he teaching? Through Maunam, silence. He is not talking anything. So just by silence he is teaching. And then what is happening to those guys? He is not talking anything. And Shyat Chinna Samshaya, all the doubts are gone. That means that is the power of silence. The great Guru, by this very presence, through medium of communication of silence, that is called classical in Dakshinamurti method of teaching. So Swami used to talk about this quite a bit. That is why he gave importance, put that statue, Maunam Vyakhyanam and Samshaya, Chinna Samshayat. They are all doubt are gone. Because silence is powerful. Even in Vibhuti Yogam, Lord Krishna says, Guhyanam Maunam. We all talk about secrets. The greatest secret, he says, is silence. Because when you talk, people know what you are saying. When you are thinking silent, if you are ignorant, that is why the best is to be silent. They may think he just knows, but just he is keeping quiet instead of opening the mouth. So silence is great secret. That is sometimes people, even in Russia, that time they were not communicated. You imagine, oh my, they have this, they are so powerful, they are knowledgeable. So that is one of the ways to give that good picture is Guhyanam, silence is, and Swami said silence is the language of the spiritual seeker. But if at all there is a sound, that sound is Om, Pranava, which is the good. But God is beyond this comprehension, and so that is what, so the practicing Dakshinamurti method. So we'll have, and Swami has taught us so much with the silence. That's why he used to say, open the heart and close the mouth. Shut the mouth, open the heart. So we all do the other things. Open the mouth and shut our heart. So you should do the other things. So that will be the one which will take, and great masters do that. That's why Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi is the greatest example of recent time. And people used to go, one man, Westerner, he went there, the list of questions, and he asked people. They said, okay, sit in the audience, Bhagavan will do. He had all the questions he wanted to ask. And after Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi opened, then they said, I got the answers for all my questions. So just, he was an example of Dakshinamurti method. He cleared all the doubts, because we came from Brahman. So that is why another nice story they talk about is Bhagavan, what is the way, he asked. And he said, the way you came. That guy got so hurt. That means he's telling me to get out. No. Then people said, no. He says, where did you come from? You came from Brahman. So go back to Brahman. So the way you came, you go back. Like that, the great masters, in a few words and through their silence, can give the greatest knowledge. So we'll continue next week, Saira.